Hello, we're back again. This time talking about, well, we kind of have been covering some moldy oldies here with Bones and Keeps and Beowulf and I'm going to do a video on just Beowulf, I think, and that'll be in this mix somewhere.
That's probably a good one.
Probably before we put Bones and Keeps up, but I think this video actually goes up before all those. But anyway, it's Old English month here at
pretty much.
Pretty much. But I wanted, everybody's read this. William Shakespeare.
Huge influence in playwriting.
Yeah.
Like, the guy who basically started it all. Made it on the map.
And so, we felt there just hasn't been enough written about this author. And we need to talk about him, because people are not talking about this stuff. And people are not reading this stuff, and it's not being adapted. And, why is this guy so little known? So we're going to fill the gap and talk about William Shakespeare.
Alrighty.
Or we're only going to cover a handful of his plays, because I don't know about you, I haven't read them all.
I haven't read all of them. But I did an English literature class in college, and we read a significant amount. And actually, we read a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, at least one of his more obscure ones. But yeah.
Okay.
It's good stuff.
I gotta stop because I'm this weird. Looking at her eyes, I'm seeing this feather up here. It's looking like a spider. It's freaking me out.
No, it's gonna stare you down the entire video.
Yeah.
The ghost of the ostrich that it came from. I have actually no idea what feathers these are from. I don't think they're ostrich. They're probably like chicken feathers of some kind that are just dyed weird. I don't know. Yeah, they are real feathers.
That's the kind of things that occur to me. Like one time this co-worker, a woman, I asked her if she was wearing off. She said it was her perfume. Whoops!
Best to just not make commentary about anything.
It's not like off to me.
Okay, well, whatevs. Anyway,
It'd be
back
a good feminist perfume.
Yeah, stay away from me. For when you just don't want men to bother you.
Exactly.
Or women, or anyone. Just be stinky. Human
Treat 'em
repellent.
like bugs.
Yeah, human repellent. Anyway,
okay.
back
to William Shakespeare. Very sorry, that's me.
Tangents, ADD moment.
Goes. Yeah.
I have a lot of those too. They happen. So I want to start though with a question.
Okay.
Of the Shakespeare you have read,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think is your favorite story?
Macbeth.
Yeah? Okay.
It's about madness.
Crazies. Oh, the crazies.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I like Midsummer Night's Dream.
That's what I was kind of debating between the two. Love Midsummer Night's Dream for all the,
I love
the
fairies.
stuff and
I
stuff
actually...
like that. I won't say that.
My first...
People will get the wrong impression.
Was it my first? I think it was my first. The first theatrical show I did, I was hair and makeup for, and we did Midsummer Night's Dream. And painting the fairies, and we put so much glitter in their hair and on their faces. They looked phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It was awesome. But I think making those beings come to life was probably a huge reason why I love that play in particular. Mm-hmm. Plus, I love the fantasy element. There's so many cool, cottagecore things. The film edition that they did.
Which one?
The more recent one.
There's
Which
been
one?
7.
I know. The most recent one. With what's his name in it? Oh, why can't I think of any actors' names right now?
There were 2 relatively recent in the late 1990s. That's the last one.
One of the ones, yeah, one of the ones in the 90s,
One
I
had
think
Michelle Pfeiffer and some other big Hollywood stars. It was good.
Yeah.
But there was one that was made that same year or the year before that had a lot of unknowns in it that was more surreal, and I love that one better.
I did that's the one I saw, and I really liked Michelle Pfeiffer in there. I think my second favorite Shakespeare would be The Tempest.
Yes.
Also because I love the recent Tempest film that they did. Have you seen it? Oh goodness, you'll like it.
How recent?
I think it was 2009. I'd have to Google it.
No, I didn't see that one.
It was in the 2000s when they did it.
There was one in the 90s that got a lot of acclaim, but was kind of different. But you can't get it anymore.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, and I've been trying to get it because it's been so long since I saw it. I don't remember it too well. I just remember thinking it was amazing when I saw it on HBO. Dating myself.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back when it actually was home box office.
I have to actually say, though, like, some of my favorite renditions, like, a lot of the Shakespeare I was exposed to as a child was on public television.
Yeah, they had, I used to love those too. They had that all the time. They would have Shakespeare plays performed. I think some of them were live, but at any rate, they were really excellent on PBS. They were going through all of Shakespeare's plays, and that's where I've seen a lot of them is on that.
Yes. And so I think I was fortunate, as a child to have been exposed to Shakespeare at a very young age, just because my family did just sit down after dinner and watch public television. There was always British comedies and Acorn TV kind of stuff, and I like BBC in the evening kind of things. And I grew up watching those with my family, so we got like the old Doctor Who, Keeping Up Appearances, Vicar of Dibley, that kind of stuff. So I grew up with those, but then you'd get those great programs where you would get the play that was playing and you'd actually be exposed to it. And when I got in like high school and college, I felt like it was hard to just read Shakespeare because the language is very eloquent. And for someone like me with an ADD brain, like, it was very easy to lose track when you were just reading it. But seeing it as the presentation that it was meant to be was just so much more than just reading it, having to come up with it in your own brain. Like, these were made, and you could tell, like, you know it was made to be a play. As you're reading it, you're trying to, like, figure out the stage positioning and things like that. That also threw me. Anytime there was, like, stage directions, I was like, what side of the stage is left? Is it... I don't know. But I get distracted by those things, but when you see it presented to you...
Yeah, when you see it the right way played, then it's a very different experience. But it still is... The language is antiquated and very hard for modern ears to deal with.
You
Best
need a lot
way
of body
for
language.
young people to get into Shakespeare was the way that I did. I had never read any Shakespeare when I went into 9th grade English in junior high school. Starbuck Junior High School in Racine, Wisconsin. The teacher that mainly taught 9th grade English, Don Bruno. Okay, you got to picture this. I hope I can do him justice. A maybe 5'0"
Little guy.
scrawny little bald guy from the Bronx.
Oh my goodness.
Who used to be a Shakespearean actor teaching 9th grade English, and he had an amazing sense of humor. His classes were not classes, they were performances.
That's
and
wonderful.
They were comedies.
That's wonderful.
You left his you couldn't help but leave his class interested and engaged in what he was teaching, no matter how hard you tried to think it was boring. It was not boring. Shakespeare was not boring because you had this Shakespearean actor in front of the class reading it to you, and it was just a different experience. That's the way to learn Shakespeare.
Yes.
Everybody else that's getting it taught to them by English teachers who really don't care, it's just a paycheck. They're leaving junior high and high school hating Shakespeare because it's just a chore. It's not enjoyable. Don Bruno made it enjoyable. He made everything enjoyable. He made The Yearling enjoyable, which I hated The Yearling.
I did too. It's just not worth it, man.
Well, and the movies were, I love Gregory Peck, but that movie is just unwatchable.
No, it's not good. But anyway, I loved Shakespeare enough that I was fortunate enough to go to his house when I was in England.
Wow.
I went to Stratford-on-Avon. My aunt gave me a trip to England as my congratulations, you're going to college present. And you'll probably be too poor to ever do this on your Oh, no, that's not true. It was just a really cool experience because my aunt had always promised each of me and my brothers that when our senior year she would take us on a special trip out of the country just to give us an abroad experience. And I thought that was really, really awesome. I am so grateful to her for that. But we went to Stratford-on-Avon, and we got to see his wife's house, his first wife's house, and we got to go to his house. I got to see the theater in his town. When I was in London, we didn't go and see a performance at the Globe, but we got to go and look at the building and see it existed and see how, like, we got information about how they had, like, rebuilt it and how they were trying to keep it really to honor its original design because, you know, it burned down like everything else did in London very regularly.
Yeah.
Several times.
Mm-hmm.
There's like how many London fires? I don't know. Like 2 or 3 of them that were pretty devastating.
Ones.
Yeah. So that really also perpetuated this experience for me because, like, as you're walking through these cute little towns that are just, you've got these buildings. First of all, you've got all these buildings that are like ancient Roman buildings.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, my house was 3,000 years old. We just got the electric all redone. It's been knob and tube forever. What? What? Your house is 3,000? Anyway, so you've got all this ancient architecture, but as you're wandering around, like, people really cared about their gardens. So, like, the whole time I felt like I was in Midsummer Night's Dream.
Mm-hmm.
People care that much about their lawns and landscaping. Not that they always did. I mean, it wasn't as sanitary and nice back in the day.
Yeah.
But, like, these enormous fields surrounding this area
Mm-hmm.
that are just these beautiful hill areas with all these animals just kind of eating away at the grass, and, like, the country setting was all so inspiring. You could just tell that Shakespeare envisioned a lot of his surrounding area as, like, the setting, the idyllic setting. And you see it in a lot of his descriptions, too. You can tell, like, pieces of home are in there. And pieces of places he's been are in there.
Right.
Like, you can just see it. And the architecture described in a lot of these, you know, depending on the era, you could see glimpses of those old medieval things in his area where he lived.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting and kind of, like, cool to see, like, holistically and hear more about his life and, like, actually, like, walk on the ground that he was walking on and actually be in his home.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see the places around where his desk was, where he wore in the floor, probably pacing, trying to figure out the next thing. Like, it was so cool to be a part of that and see those things.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, our tour guide, even when we were there, was like, you know, do not get on the floor and kiss it because you have, like, because a lot of people were, like, saying they feel like they should be doing that. And he's like, I've actually had people get on this floor and kiss it because this is the original floor that Shakespeare walked on. Mm-hmm. This has not been changed. The house has been restored, but this floor, all these floors are original. And it was just like, holy shit, kind of moment. But it was really cool. It was a really cool experience. And I felt like it just added to my appreciation of him as a person and as a playwright.
Okay.
Despite his womanizing. Who wasn't a womanizer back then, though, honestly? Like, you can't get away with it.
I don't know. I didn't live back then.
Yeah. It sounds like everybody who was anybody was a womanizer, it seemed, unfortunately. But,
yeah.
I mean, it was just really cool, though, to kind of see glimpses of where he lived and what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of see how impacted the world is now.
Yeah.
Because of that. That was really a cool experience for me.
But the thing to remember with Shakespeare is that he was a popular writer.
He was.
You know, and that's something a lot of people forget. I forget where I was encountering it, I think on a YouTube video or something where somebody was making the comment that too many of those old authors are treated like these gods, and they really were and it was in a comment about a professor that was looking down on science fiction writers, and because they were popular writers. Well, so was Dickens, so was Shakespeare. They were popular writers.
Romeo and Juliet was basically the 50 Shades of Grey of its time.
Exactly. I mean,
when you think about
he was looking to have blood and guts and titillation and, excitement and stuff. But he did it in the style of his time that his popular audiences could understand. And it only seems highbrow to us because we don't talk that way anymore. Our world has changed.
Yeah.
And we don't have those same idiosyncrasies to the way we talk or whatever. And also some of what he did on stage was simply to keep his audience engaged. The way his characters talk, where they'd go from whispering at one moment and then yelling the next, it was meant to wake up the audience.
And songs and poetry in the midst of monologues was a very common thing for him to throw in there.
Because that was popular entertainment. People
Yes.
wanted songs, they wanted poetry,
Yes.
they want,
Yes, he very much catered to his audiences. And I think the only reason that Shakespeare sticks with us is because he was brutally honest about the human condition. When you sit there and think, a lot of his characters were very non-redeemable characters.
Yeah.
But we still enjoy those plays. We still enjoy those douchebags. Like the guy who gets turned into a donkey in Midsummer Night's Dream is not a very redeemable character.
No.
He's meant to be a comedic douchebag.
That's why he's called Bottom.
Yeah, literally.
Turned into an ass.
Literally. So, I mean, but he was very forthwith about the human condition. And his characters were very relatable in that way. Like, nobody wants to be the ass. But there were people who could still relate to that character. In Romeo and Juliet, you can see two hormonal teens killing themselves over not being able to be together. Like, you could see these things happening in real life. They didn't feel so far-fetched. I mean, the fairies maybe were a little far-fetched, but that's just a fun fantasy element to add to anything.
Yeah, and it's drawing upon English tradition.
Absolutely. So you're
Celtic
just
tradition.
bringing in a folklore that people already relate to and have already made a bond with. So essentially what he did is he gave the average person a story that not only entertained them, but felt relatable. And I think that was his huge appeal. Like, I felt the same... I'm going to say a very unpopular opinion. I don't think the Beatles were that great. But they were easy to market. They had really great writing. Like, the poetry and lyrics of their work was great. Musically, it wasn't that interesting until you get a little further along in their albums. I think some of it got more interesting as they went. But at the beginning... they were super relatable. And that's why kids started getting into rock and roll. And that's why the Beatles became popular, is because their message was super relatable. And I feel like Shakespeare was kind of like the Beatles of his time.
Well, yeah. What he did is he drew upon all of the stories from ancient fables and literature, ancient fables and mythologies and ancient Roman history texts, and recast them into popular drama, which nobody had done yet. And in doing so, he basically wrote every basic story that we've been writing since then.
Yes.
Which was quite a feat, but, somebody's got to be first. Somebody has to write them first. And, well, he didn't have to write all of them, but he did.
And it's so interesting, too, because, like... he's given us great stories and still left so much to the imagination. Like, people still love the movie Shakespeare in Love. We don't know if that was actually Shakespeare's life. We don't know all the things. Like, the guy couldn't even spell his name consistently. Like, we don't know enough.
There's been a lot of theories about Shakespeare.
Yes.
Even that Shakespeare wasn't a real person. That I forget what playwright they thought might have written all.
It was his
rival.
It was his most popular rival. Oh, what's his name?
I forget the name of him. But one of the other popular playwrights back then, it's conjectured that maybe he wrote all of Shakespeare's work.
And Shakespeare was just the front man, or that Shakespeare wasn't even really that guy's name. So yeah, I mean, like, this guy, he's given us such great works that even the man himself is a mystery. And I think, like, that is a huge part of his appeal as well for modern day.
Yeah.
Is that he's given us so many stories but his own. And that leaves so much to the imagination. So, like, people love films of, like, Shakespeare in Love, where, yes, we took complete creative license. We have no idea, like, what, other than, like, what church history shows us, the different women he married or left or whatever. He was kind of a bigamist. I don't think he ever officially divorced his first wife. I think he just left her. and then went and got married to someone else. I can't even remember all of that. But he's left enough to the imagination where he himself has become legend.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a huge appeal for Shakespeare, is because we don't know so much about his life, because, I mean, not everybody kept really good tabs on people except the church and courts. So unless you were in trouble, there was no paper trail of who you were and what you did. And occasionally maybe his letters and things like that, and his sonnets. Like, we think we know a person, but we don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's the huge appeal, is that you have not only this man who's written these great romantic plays and great tragic plays and these very human experiences without even knowing his own human experience.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So,
a lot of writing material.
Probably the best advice is go see Shakespeare. Don't pick it up and read it.
Yes.
Because it was meant to be performed. It was meant for the stage. And if you don't have that full experience, you're going to be missing something. But if you want to read it, understand that if you read the original Shakespeare, you're going to have to work at it, because English back in the 1600s is not the English we speak today.
And I don't even think Shakespeare's play English was the kind of English they actually spoke then.
No,
I think it was very much a performance dialogue.
Yeah, it was definitely a performance thing, and I've heard where he made up words and stuff for his plays, that he needed a word to express something that didn't exist, and so he just made it up.
Yeah. I mean, he wrote a lot of the dictionary.
Yeah. But don't be intimidated by the highbrows that want to make him some kind of god. He was just an entertainer, and he did a very good job of entertaining. And if you can't get past the English, there are plenty of movies, TV shows, books that take his plays and recast them in modern times with modern English, and much more understandable. But it's the same story. My favorite is Forbidden Planet.
Oh.
It's The Tempest.
Yes. That's right.
I saw that movie as a kid, and I didn't know that. And then I was reading in a science fiction magazine that was talking about how Forbidden Planet was based on The Tempest. I thought, what? So I read The Tempest, and yeah, sure enough, that movie is based on The Tempest. Wow. Very different from the original play, but The Tempest is still there.
Yeah, I've also heard things like, oh, The Lion King is basically Hamlet. Which it kind of is, but I think it kind of matches with Macbeth a little more.
Okay.
But, there are probably a ton of YouTube videos and stuff about all the different things that Shakespeare has influenced over time. You could probably hear a lot about that. Especially when it comes to movies and other performance pieces. Shakespeare was the guy who set the standard. But that's because he was so popular, and people were so influenced by him.
And the other amazing thing is all the popular phrases that you use every day or often that are quotes of Shakespeare plays, like "Something wicked this way comes." That's from
"Something rotten
Macbeth.
in the state of Denmark."
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ones to say when something's up at my house. I'll be like one of my cats did something naughty, and I don't know which one it was. I'll be like, "Something's rotten in the state of Denmark."
Or Rose by Any Other Name. That's Romeo and Juliet. I mean, there's so much of that.
To
that
be or
is
not
just,
to be.
Yeah. It's just straight quotes of Shakespeare. And we use them every day in our common speech. In many cases, people don't even know it's Shakespeare that they're quoting.
Can I just say one of my favorite parts of the Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio is when they say, "Draw your sword," and they pull out guns that say sword on the side.
I didn't see that.
You haven't seen that? Oh my gosh, it's like a cult classic. Okay. It's great.
It's not that old if it's
Leonardo
DiCaprio.
No, it's really not that old, but it is a great rendition of Romeo and Juliet.
Okay. Only ones I've seen are West Side Story and Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet.
Okay. I definitely recommend the one with Leonardo DiCaprio. One, because the sets are great and the costuming's great. But there are some moments, like when they say, "Draw your sword," and they pull out guns. I lost my shit. I thought that was hilarious. I think I saw that for the first time in high school, and we watched it in my class where we were reading Shakespeare, because we had just finished Romeo and Juliet, and that was the first time I had watched it, and it was Like that, it just lost it. Like, that's my favorite part. So yes, Shakespeare has also influenced artistic license.
Yes.
So there.
I remember seeing Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet was Don Bruno's English class. He got it filmed in our auditorium. We had to get our parents to sign releases for us to be able to watch it because there was a little bit of nudity in it.
Yeah. Yes. I saw
not
that
enough
version
to.
too, actually, I think.
Sorry?
I think I saw that version too. I've seen so many versions.
It's the best movie version if you're looking for an accurate movie of Romeo and Juliet. Mm-hmm. It's brilliant. It won an Oscar. Mm-hmm. One of the rare foreign films to win an Oscar. And it's a brilliant movie. It's one of my favorites.
Awesome.
But I also love I wish he would go back to it. Kenneth Branagh did a number of adaptations of Shakespeare to movies. He did Hamlet. He did Richard III, I believe. He did one of the comedies. I think that's all he did, and then he stopped. He did a whole string of them in the early 90s.
I'll have to look them up.
And now he's doing Marvel Comics movies like everybody else is. Waste of his talent. The man's a brilliant director, and he did a great job on his Shakespeare movies. I wish they'd let him go back to those.
But to be fair, too, like, you gotta go where the money is. Just like Shakespeare. You gotta do what the money get and what people want to see. And when they want to see it, they'll fork up a lot of money to go see it. But
you don't always have to, because Branagh, just before he did Thor, he did The Magic Flute.
Oh, okay.
And he took Mozart's The Magic Flute, as is with the music, but he set it in World War I. And the art direction of this movie is just incredible. The most beautiful movie I've seen in a long time.
Okay.
The man could be one of the greatest directors, standing up there with Kubrick and Hitchcock and all the other greats, if Hollywood would just stop rehashing Marvel comics all the time.
Yeah.
And let the man do what he's capable of doing. He's a brilliant director, and he could be doing some of the greatest films ever made if they would let him.
Yeah. I don't know enough about him, so I'm just going to smile and nod.
Okay.
I'll go talk to my husband. My husband's the movie buff.
If he doesn't have the Magic Flute, I do.
He
Come
does.
over here and watch it.
Yeah, he does have the Magic Flute. I've
Flute?
seen it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I've seen it on the
Beautiful
shelf.
movie. Absolutely beautiful.
All right, now I'm going to have to watch it.
Yep.
But yeah. Do we have any more?
Well, there's other versions of the Magic Flute. Your husband might not have Branagh's version.
I'll double check.
Okay.
If it's that iconic of a movie like you say it is, and it has that kind of...
Well, no, it didn't. Because it's the Magic Flute today and everybody wants Marvel comics, it did not do real well at the box office.
That doesn't necessarily matter for my husband's collection, though.
Well, no.
He likes artsy
he has
films.
Taste.
Yes, he does have taste. He's very particular about what movies he has and doesn't.
Yes.
Though sometimes I still question it.
So he might have it, but no, it was not a big hit, and I don't think it even was mentioned at the Oscars. I don't think it was nominated for anything, but it should have, because it's an amazing movie.
Bummer. Anyway, do you have anything else to say about Shakespeare?
No, except that it's a struggle to read his original works. Like I say, much better if you go and see it.
See it in its
it'll
holistic,
make more sense,
finished product.
And it'll just be more beautiful with all the costumes and props and noise and stuff. But it's worth it. It's worth the effort. Because
his stories are
it
iconic.
is the foundation of Western literature. Once you get past all the Iliad and Odyssey and Beowulf and King Arthur, you get Shakespeare.
Yep. Awesome.
So,
well, that's what we got to say about Shakespeare.
Top tales, a lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of his work is going to end up being in our top tales. And it's... His influence cannot even be expressed in film form, so we're going to stop trying. I'm going to stop trying.